大家好，欢迎关注华尔街电视频道。本视频录制时间为美东时间1月24日。这一期热点深度重点关注中美之间的微妙动态，尤其是在特朗普新政府的背景下。中国外交部长王毅最近与美国国务卿马可·鲁比奥进行了首次通话，这表明北京愿意在不久的将来与特朗普政府展开对话。尽管鲁比奥曾是中国的尖锐批评者，这通电话的背后隐藏着许多意义，特别是王毅在对话中对鲁比奥的警告，这在英语版本中却被隐去了，改成了另外一种表述。这表明中国领导人习近平在试图与特朗普政府接触的同时，也不忘维持强硬的国内形象。这次通话发生在特朗普延期对中国商品征税的背景下，显示出他对谈判的开放态度，而非立即开启贸易战的激烈立场。此外，台湾问题再次成为焦点，两国的立场依然紧张。随着经济压力的增加，习近平和他的团队已经准备好迎接特朗普2期可能带来的经济紧张局势，但同时他们也在寻求解决方案，这使得未来的中美关系充满了不确定性。请大家继续收看详细内容。华尔街日报的报道提到，在最新的外交互动中，中国外长王毅首次与美国国务卿马可·鲁比奥通话，这一行动标志着北京愿意与新一届特朗普政府展开实质性对话。值得注意的是，鲁比奥在2020年曾2次被中国制裁，那是特朗普首个总统任期的最后1年。然而，这次通话表明，北京准备绕过这些制裁，与鲁比奥进行接触，这与特朗普表现出的愿意与北京谈判的意愿是相契合的，而非立即展开贸易战。根据中国外交部的说明，王毅在通话中呼吁他的美国同行找到新时期中美两国正确相处之道。然而，王毅同鲁比奥的通话内容，中国外交部的中文版和英文版有着不小的不同。在中文版声明中，王毅对鲁比奥发出了一种隐晦的警告，这段警告在英文版中被略去。在中文版中，王毅使用了好自为之这个成语，传达了一种慎重行事、考虑后果的意味。这一句好自为之让不少中国观察人士大跌眼镜。
当然中国要面子，要面子有时也变得很蠢啊，譬如你这个里面词啊，好自为之这种词不应该用，很不得体啊，很不大气。大国就应该有大气，大国不能如此小气。对于一个新上来的美国国务卿啊，作为一个长期未来的要交往的一个外交官，应该有尊重，不要居高临下。
值得注意的是，官方的新华社英文报道中并未提及这句话。华尔街日报的报道认为，这种语言上的微妙变化显示出中国领导人习近平希望在与特朗普政府打交道的同时，维持他在国内的强硬形象。我们再结合上下文，体会中文版中好自为之这4个字的分量。王毅表示，大国要有大国的样子，应当承担应尽国际责任，应当维护世界和平，应当帮助各国实现共同发展。希望你好自为之，为中美两国人民的未来，为世界的和平与稳定发挥建设性作用。而在英文版中，相同的内容再翻译成中文，则是王毅表示，大国应有大国的担当，承担应尽的国际责任，维护世界和平，帮助各国实现共同发展。王毅希望鲁比奥能够做出正确的决策，为中美两国人民的未来以及全球和平与稳定发挥建设性作用。好自为之变成了英文 make the right decisions。这次通话恰逢特朗普推迟对中国商品加征关税之际，他在竞选期间曾表示关税可能高达 60%。特朗普威胁称，由于北京未能阻止芬太尼流入美国，他计划对中国征收 10% 的进口税，最早可能在2月1日实施。然而，他也暗示在4月1日之前的中国贸易惯例审查之前，与中国领导人进行对话的空间。在日前接受福克斯新闻采访时，特朗普谈到了他的关税计划，并表示，我宁愿不使用这个手段，但这对中国是极大的压力。习近平和他的顾问们已经为与特朗普政府升级的经济紧张局势准备了数月。中国正在加大努力吸引欧洲和亚洲的美国盟友，加强中央控制以稳固中国经济，并准备一整套工具以应对美国可能阻止中国商品进入其市场的措施。与此同时，随着国内经济压力的增加，习近平也表现出愿意进行谈判。 特朗普曾邀请习近平参加他的就职典礼，而中国领导人派遣了副主席参加，这一举动被视为来自领导层的善意姿态。尽管他们通常对政治风险持谨慎态度，习近平还在1月17日致电特朗普，双方在通话中承诺将就主要问题进行接触，并对近期举行峰会表现出兴趣。据中国外交部称，王毅与鲁比奥的通话中特别提到了台湾，这一可能成为双边关系热点的问题。北京声称拥有对这一自治岛屿的主权，并未排除以武力收回的可能性。特朗普尚未明确表示他将如何处理美国与台北之间的微妙关系，除了要求台湾领导人增加军费开支。据中国外交部的说法，鲁比奥在与王毅的对话中确认，美国不支持台湾独立。中国方面的通话记录引用鲁比奥的话称，美国希望台湾问题能够以双方海峡两岸都能接受的方式和平解决。鲁比奥与其他美国官员在2020年因中美两国在包括新疆地区种族灭绝指控和香港公民自由压制问题上的冲突而被中国制裁。作为当时代表佛罗里达州的共和党参议员，鲁比奥支持了一项旨在阻止进口新疆制造商品的法案，后来该法案由拜登总统签署成为法律。特朗普就职后的星期一，参议院迅速确认鲁比奥出任国务卿。通过这次通话和背后的外交策略，我们可以窥见中美关系在特朗普第2任期的复杂性和不确定性。北京在努力适应新的外交局势，同时也在为可能的冲突做准备。面对特朗普的关税威胁和外交压力，北京显然希望通过对话缓解紧张局势，同时在国内保持强硬立场以安抚民意。从多角度分析，这次中美高层通话反映了双方在外交政策上的权衡和战略考虑。首先，从中国的角度来看，尽管中美两国在多方面存在分歧与对抗，但北京显然不愿意立即陷入与美国的全面对抗。通过与卢比奥的对话，北京传递出一种务实的态度，试图通过外交手段化解潜在的危机，并为中美关系的稳定发展提供空间。这种态度尤其重要，因为中美关系不仅涉及两国间的经济利益，也影响全球的政治经济格局。其次，从美国的角度来看，特朗普政府尽管在竞选期间对中国采取强硬立场，但上任后表现出一定的灵活性。这种灵活性可能源于对美国经济利益的考量，以及对如何在复杂国际环境中维护美国全球领导地位的深思熟虑。特朗普政府似乎意识到，与中国展开贸易战可能对美国经济产生不利影响，因此在实施强硬政策的同时，也愿意通过谈判来获得更好的条件。此外，这次通话还揭示了中美在台湾问题上的微妙平衡。台湾始终是影响中美关系的关键议题之一，双方在这一问题上的立场虽然存在根本性差异，但双方都意识到在当前局势下避免直接冲突的重要性。通过这次通话，美国明确表示不支持台湾独立，这在一定程度上缓解了北京的焦虑，同时也显示出美国在处理台湾问题时的谨慎和策略性。总的来说，这次中美高层的通话标志着中美关系在特朗普第2任期内可能迎来新的发展路径。尽管挑战和分歧依然存在，但双方通过沟通和对话来化解矛盾的意愿，或许能为未来的合作开辟新的可能性。在全球局势复杂多变的背景下，中美关系的走向无疑将继续受到全球关注。我们将持续关注这一动态，带来更多深入的分析和报道。在这个充满紧张的全球政治格局中，美国国务卿马可·鲁比奥与中国外交部长王毅在一次电话交谈中，重申美国不支持台湾独立的立场。这一声明符合美国政府长久以来在台湾问题上的立场，并有助于缓解新的美国政府对中国的忧虑。这次谈话是鲁比奥与王毅之间的首次交流。根据中国官方媒体新华社的报道，王毅强调台湾自古以来就是中国领土的一部分，中国绝不允许台湾从祖国分裂出去。王毅不仅是中国的外交部长，还是中国政治局的一员。他告诉鲁比奥，美国在3个联合公报中对一个中国政策做出了庄严承诺，不应违背自己的承诺。在1972、1979和1982年的3个联合公报中，美国承认中国的立场，即只有一个中国，台湾是中国的一部分。基于这一立场，美国不对台湾的最终主权问题采取立场。王毅明确表示，中国无意超越或取代任何国家，但必须捍卫其正当的发展权利。 双方的对话中，卢比奥表示美国愿意与北京坦诚沟通，以成熟和谨慎的态度管理双边关系。这一立场得到了中国的积极回应。王毅表示，中国和美国两大国家的关系是21世纪最重要的双边关系，并将决定世界的未来。这番话在新华社的报道中得到了重点强调。同时，美国总统唐纳德·特朗普也对中美关系持乐观态度。他在瑞士达沃斯世界经济论坛的视频连线中表示，他相信中美之间会有非常良好的关系。他强调，美国所要求的只是公平，即不希望被占便宜，而是希望缩小美国在与中国的贸易中存在的巨大赤字。然而，美国国务院并未立即对卢比奥与王毅通话的细节做出回应。在这次电话会议中，卢比奥的表现显示出他对中国一向强硬的立场。值得注意的是，2020年北京2次制裁卢比奥，第一次是因为他对中国高级官员的制裁与新疆维吾尔族少数民族的待遇有关，第二次则是因为香港抗议事件后，美国对内地和香港官员的制裁。这些举措显示出卢比奥在国会中作为鹰派代表的角色，他一直倡导一种更为强硬的对中政策。而除了双方的对话外，美国国会山庄也发出了更具鹰派色彩的信息。美国众议院议员宣布将重新引入一项法案，要求特朗普审查是否应制裁香港官员，因为他们被认为对打压香港民主活动人士负有责任。在这个背景下，卢比奥与王毅的对话也显得格外重要，因为它不仅涉及到双边关系的未来，也影响到全球的和平与稳定。王毅在与卢比奥的交谈中，特别提到中美两国领导人已经为双边关系设定了方向和基调。他希望卢比奥能够在未来为中美两国人民和世界和平与稳定发挥建设性作用。这次电话会议是特朗普总统第2任期内两国外交高层的第一次交流。根据中国外交部的声明，双方讨论了中美关系和台湾问题。王毅强调，两国的团队应落实两国元首的重要共识，保持沟通，管理分歧，扩大合作，促进中美关系的稳定、健康和可持续发展，并在新时代中找到中美相处的正确方式。这次对话发生在特朗普与习近平通话后不久，那次通话中，双方同意就重大问题建立战略沟通渠道。特朗普在世界经济论坛上指出，他对中美关系持非常乐观的态度，希望中国能帮助结束俄罗斯在乌克兰的战争。尽管双边关系面临挑战，特朗普表示他收到了访问中国的邀请，并可能在今年内前往。这表明即便在紧张的政治氛围下，两国仍在寻求合作的可能性。然而，与此同时，卢比奥在他的确认听证会上表示，中国认为自己在未来20至30年内有能力取代美国成为世界主导力量。王毅则回应表示，中国无意超越或取代任何人，但必须捍卫其正当的发展权。关于台湾问题，王毅再次强调，台湾自古以来就是中国的一部分，中国绝不允许台湾从中国分裂出去。台湾的民主政府则拒绝北京的主权主张，并表示共产党从未统治过这个岛屿。美国对台湾的军售一直是北京与华盛顿关系紧张的原因之一。王毅强调，美国在3个中美联合公报中做出了追求一个中国政策的庄严承诺，必须履行其承诺。王毅呼吁美国应该像一个大国一样行事，承担其应有的国际责任，维护世界和平，并帮助所有国家实现共同发展。这也反映了美国官员对中国的批评。在这样一个错综复杂的国际环境中，中美两国的互动不仅关乎双边关系，也影响着全球的稳定和未来发展走向。卢比奥与王毅的对话虽然立场各异，但也显示出双方在维护全球和平与稳定、应对共同挑战方面的意愿。这场对话为未来提供了一个潜在的合作平台，即便在困难重重的情形下，双方仍有可能在某些领域找到共识和合作空间。
好了，以上就是今天热点深度所有内容，更多资讯可以关注六度简报网站，网址是6dobrief.com，在上面各位可以订阅各类符合您喜好的简报新闻，有免费套餐，也有更加专业的付费套餐供大家选择。今天的视频就到这里，我们下个视频再见。
大家好，欢迎来到我们的六度追踪节目。今天我们将探讨一个引人注目的热点话题：特朗普最近的发言如何影响中美贸易战的局势以及人民币的走势。作为曾经以强硬立场著称的前美国总统，特朗普似乎在这次发言中释放出了一些和解的信号，暗示他希望能避免加征关税，并更愿意寻求贸易协议。这一改变不仅引发市场的积极反应，人民币也随之上涨，让人不禁想象，若中美两国携手合作，将对全球经济带来多大的动力。然而，随着这股暖风的吹拂，市场的波动也提醒我们保持冷静。未来的贸易协议能否真正落实，仍然充满变数。我们亦不能忽视中国方面的回应，强调合作的重要性与和平解决争端的诚意。从过去的贸易战到如今的曙光，企业和投资者们都在重新评估未来的策略，以迎接可能的转机。但各位观众，这一切的美好愿景需要时间来实现。特朗普的言论虽然振奋，但未来的发展仍需密切关注，所以请大家继续收看详细内容。特朗普暗示可免贸易战，人民币应声上涨。本文源自 Yahoo.com， 讨论了全球经济舞台上中美贸易战的最新进展。特朗普，这位以其强硬贸易政策而闻名的美国前总统，近期似乎改变了他的语调，发出了一种缓和的信号。特朗普在最近的一次讲话中提到，他宁愿不对中国加征关税，并希望能与中国达成贸易协议。一表态如一阵春风，立即让市场感受到了一丝暖意。特朗普表示，关税虽然是制衡中国的一种手段，但他更愿意通过达成协议的方式来解决两国间的贸易问题。这一言论不仅引发了市场对中美合作前景的期待，也让人想象，两国若能携手共进，将为全球经济注入强大动力。其结果是，人民币汇率随之上升，创下了近2个月的新高。这不仅是市场对特朗普言论的积极反应，更是对未来中美贸易关系的乐观预测。人民币的升值意味着中国进口商品的价格更为优惠，对消费者无疑是个好消息。中国外交部发言人对此也做出了回应，重申中美经贸合作是互利共赢的，并表示分歧应通过对话和协商解决。这一表态显示了中国在和平解决贸易争端方面的诚意，以及其在全球经济中日益增强的影响力。回顾过去，中美贸易战的开端曾让人感到不安。关税的提升使许多企业面临困境，尤其是那些依赖进口原材料的制造业。然而，随着特朗普最近的表态，市场似乎看到了希望的曙光。许多企业开始重新评估其策略，以迎接可能的贸易协议。在此背景下，投资者也开始重新布局。股市的波动和人民币的升值提醒我们，经济变化可能会在瞬间发生。若中美两国贸易关系回暖，将有许多企业受益，许多家庭的生活因此改善。然而，这一美好前景的实现仍需时间。尽管特朗普的言论令人振奋，但未来是否能达成贸易协议仍充满变数。市场反应虽热烈，但我们应保持理性，密切关注接下来的发展。特朗普此番表态无疑为中美贸易关系带来了一丝曙光。人民币的升值不仅是对未来的期待，也是对两国合作潜力的肯定。希望不久的将来，我们能看到一个更加繁荣的中美经贸合作局面，为全球经济的持续发展提供动力。从不同角度分析，这一最新动态可能是在为中美两国未来的经济政策走向铺路。特朗普的态度转变，或许是由于意识到贸易战给美国国内经济带来的损害，如农业领域受创和制造业成本上升等。对于中国而言，人民币的升值意味着在国际市场上的购买力增强，也可能反映出市场对中国经济韧性的信心。在国际社会层面，全球经济一体化程度加深，中美两国作为全球最大的2个经济体，其贸易关系对世界经济的稳定和发展至关重要。特朗普的这一态度转变 可能也反映出美国试图在国际经济治理中占据更多主动权，通过缓和与中国的贸易关系来重塑其国际经济地位。尽管如此，必须注意到，特朗普的言论和市场的短期反应并不能立刻改变中美贸易的长期趋势。两国之间的结构性矛盾、科技争端和地缘政治问题仍然存在，因此未来的谈判和协议需要涵盖更广泛的议题，才能真正实现双方的互利共赢。从企业的角度来看，许多跨国公司可能会在此时调整其供应链策略，以应对可能的政策变化。与此同时，投资者需要在波动的市场环境中保持警觉，审慎评估投资风险和机会。最后，对于普通消费者而言，贸易政策的变化可能影响到商品的价格和种类。若人民币继续升值，中国消费者将享受到更便宜的进口商品，而美国消费者则可能面临价格波动和供应链调整带来的影响。总之，特朗普在此时暗示可能免除贸易战，释放出与中国达成协议的愿景，为未来的中美贸易关系提供了新的想象空间。然而，未来的实际走向仍需多方合作和耐心等待。我们将继续关注这一重要议题的发展，期待中美两国能够通过对话与合作，实现更加稳定和繁荣的经济关系。谢谢大家收看六度探索，这是一个由科学家、经济学家、媒体人、工程技术人员合作建立的新型媒体。网友与六度 AI 参与合作完成各种内容，这些内容不能作为任何决策或法律的意见。这是一个新型的试验性媒体方式，我们希望得到大家的支持，修正错误。网友可以参与讨论，也可以向万能的六博士提出你能想出的任何问题。六度世界网址是6D World， 请介绍给你的亲朋好友。
大家好，欢迎来到我们的华尔街网报节目。今天我们要深入探讨美国总统特朗普与中国国家主席习近平之间的微妙动态。特朗普在最近的虚拟访谈中，不仅表达了对习近平的好感，更强调了他对于中美之间建立公平贸易环境的期待。然而，这段良好关系的背后，却隐藏着特朗普对中国贸易政策的不满。他甚至考虑提高对中国商品的关税，这显示出他在贸易问题上的强硬立场。此外，特朗普也期待与中国合作解决国际冲突，并强调了中国在全球事务中的影响力。中国方面同样表达了与美国进行谈判的意愿，强调应在互利合作的基础上推动双边经济贸易关系的稳定发展。这一系列的言论和行动无疑为中美关系的未来增添了变数。那么， 特朗普的强硬政策与他对习近平的个人好感之间的矛盾，究竟会如何影响两国合作的走向？请大家继续收看详细内容。特朗普赞扬习近平，期待与中国和睦相处。这篇文章来自 CNBC， 报道了美国前总统唐纳德·特朗普最近在世界经济论坛的一次虚拟访谈中发表的言论。在这次访谈中，特朗普称赞了中国国家主席习近平，并表示希望美中两国能够建立一个和睦的关系。特朗普在访谈中提到，他与习近平保持着良好的关系，并对两国的未来表示乐观。他强调自己希望中美两国能够建立一个公平的贸易环境，这似乎是他对未来发展的一种期待。特朗普坦言，他对习近平有很高的评价，称其为朋友。这种个人情感上的表述不仅显示出特朗普对中国领导人的欣赏，也反映了他对中美关系的某种乐观期待。不过，特朗普的发言中也包含了一些对中国的不满，尤其是在贸易政策方面。他表示，美国希望能够实现一个公平的竞争环境，这是特朗普在竞选时期就反复强调的立场。他在访谈期间透露，如果条件不变，他可能会继续对中国商品提高关税。他甚至曾在竞选期间考虑对中国商品征收高达 60% 的关税。这显示出特朗普在贸易问题上的立场依然强硬。在贸易问题之外，特朗普还提到希望中国能够协助美国，帮助结束俄乌战争。他指出，中国在俄乌冲突中具有很大的影响力，希望借助这种影响力来推动解决冲突的进程。特朗普的这一声明表明，他对中国在国际事务中的作用抱有一定的期待，希望通过合作来解决国际问题。与此同时，中国政府也表达了与美国进行谈判的意愿。中国商务部发言人在周四表示，中国一直与美方保持沟通，并强调双方应基于相互尊重、和平共处和互利合作的原则，推动双边经济贸易关系的稳步发展。这一表态与特朗普的期望不谋而合，显示出双方在一定程度上都有合作的愿望。此外，特朗普还透露，他与习近平就 TikTok 和贸易问题进行了电话交谈。尽管中国方面并未在通报中提及 TikTok， 但习近平在会谈中强调了合作的重要性，并认为两国的经济联系是互利共赢的关系。这一交流似乎为未来中美在数字经济领域的合作提供了一个契机。总体而言，特朗普在访谈中的言论为中美关系的发展增添了新的变数。他对习近平的个人好感与其对中国贸易政策的批评形成鲜明对比。这种矛盾让人不禁思考，未来两国关系的走向究竟会如何？无论如何，特朗普的表态确实为中美关系的发展注入了新的动力，也引发了全球对这两个世界大国互动的关注。中美关系的未来如何发展，尤其是在贸易和国际事务合作方面，将继续吸引各方的目光。
思想先驱报，成为有洞察力的人。华尔街电视特别节目，纽约时间每天早上8点，李奇博士主持。和平评点。
谢谢大家收看六度探索。这是一个由科学家、经济学家、媒体人、工程技术人员合作建立的新型媒体。网友与六度 AI 参与合作完成各种内容，这些内容不能作为任何决策或法律的意见。这是一个新型的试验性媒体方式，我们希望得到大家的支持，修正错误。网友可以参与讨论，也可以向万能的六博士提出你能想出的任何问题。六度世界网址是 6du.world， 请介绍给你的亲朋好友。 大家好，欢迎来到我们六度解析节目。今天我们将深入探讨特朗普 2.0 对中国的影响。这位美国总统的回归对中国来说似乎开局良好，但这段蜜月究竟能持续多久呢？特朗普在其新任期内尚未如预期对中国施加高额关税，并表示希望与中国建立良好关系，甚至有意访问北京。这对于一直在为美中关系的动荡做准备的中国来说，无疑是个好消息。然而，特朗普任命的内阁成员中不乏对中国持强硬立场的人士，这让中国的外交政策面临挑战。分析指出，中国必须小心应对特朗普的交易艺术，并在贸易协议的基础上寻求对话的机会。虽然中国希望促进平衡贸易，但特朗普的高额关税威胁仍然悬而未决，这让北京不得不考虑如何在这个新环境中保持稳定。尽管双方有合作的空间，但中国的内部动力和国际形势并未改变。北京在与美国交往中必须保持强硬姿态，这不仅是对内部观众的承诺，还是全球影响力的展现。因此，即使特朗普政府的立场似乎有所缓和，中国对美中关系的未来仍持怀疑态度。总之，特朗普 2.0 给予了中国某种喘息空间，但这能否转化为持久的合作关系，依然存在疑问。请大家继续收看详细内容。特朗普的第二任期对中国而言，似乎一开始就展现了令人意外的友好姿态。尽管特朗普以往对中国的强硬立场广为人知，但在他再次当选后的短短几个月内，这位美国总统似乎在努力重新调整策略，寻求与中国的合作与交流。在达沃斯世界经济论坛上，特朗普的讲话中流露出对中美关系的积极展望。他表示，两国可以建立非常好的关系。这一表态无疑为中美两国间长期存在的紧张局势带来了一丝新的希望。事实上，他甚至暗示有可能在未来几个月访问北京。这一姿态被认为是增进双边关系的潜在契机。此外，特朗普还决定给予中国拥有的热门应用程序 TikTok 一段缓冲期，这让许多人惊讶不已。此前，他曾要求该公司剥离其美国业务，否则将面临禁令。这一举动被解读为特朗普准备放松对中国企业的限制，至少在目前如此。这些变化对北京来说是个好消息，因为中国一直在为特朗普第二任期可能带来的挑战做准备。毕竟，特朗普在他的内阁中任命了多位对中国持强硬立场的官员，并在其竞选过程中承诺对所有中国进口商品征收高额关税。然而，随着他在达沃斯论坛上的言论以及对 TikTok 的缓和态度，似乎显示特朗普愿意给予中国更多的对话空间。中国的领导层也迅速行动起来，期待尽早抓住这一机遇。习近平在与特朗普的通话中呼吁两国关系的新起点，并派出高级代表出席特朗普的就职典礼。中方希望通过这样的举措缓和双边紧张局势，并为更广泛的经济合作奠定基础。然而，尽管目前的气氛似乎有所缓和，但中国方面仍然对美中关系变化的速度保持谨慎态度。他们深知当前的蜜月期可能不会持续太久。美国国内对中国的疑虑依然存在，特别是在技术和国家安全等敏感领域，加之特朗普的政策往往变幻莫测，使得北京不得不时刻警觉。在中国国内，对于如何应对特朗普的政策有不同的观点。部分专家建议，在经济上应该加强对话与合作，而非采取过于强硬的立场。这样的声音在当前中美贸易协议尚未完全落实的背景下，显得尤为重要。毕竟，对于中国这样高度依赖出口的经济体而言，任何形式的贸易战都可能带来不可估量的损失。同时，中美两国在其他领域的紧张关系依然存在。从人权问题到台湾问题，这些敏感话题仍然是双方关系中的潜在雷区。此外，美国国内的反华情绪并未减弱，许多美国政客 仍将中国视为其全球霸权地位的主要挑战者。因此，尽管目前的蜜月期对中国而言是个积极的信号，但北京深知这场外交舞蹈还远未结束。在接下来的日子里，中国需要仔细权衡，不仅要在经济上找到与特朗普合作的契机，更要在政治上展现出足够的灵活性，以确保在这场大国博弈中不失主动。
思想先驱报，成为有洞察力的人。华尔街电视特别节目，纽约时间每天早上8点，李奇博士主持，和平评点。
谢谢大家收看六度探索，这是一个由科学家、经济学家、媒体人、工程技术人员合作建立的新型媒体。网友与六度 I 参与合作，完成各种内容。这些内容不能作为任何决策或法律的意见。这是一个新型的试验性媒体方式，我们希望得到大家的支持，修正错误。网友可以参与讨论，也可以向万能的六博士提出你能想出的任何问题。六度世界网址是 6du.world， 请介绍给你的亲朋好友。
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it's a great honor to welcome His Excellency丁薛祥, member of the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the Chinese Communist Party and Vice Premier of the State Council of the People's Republic of China, for the first time to the World Economic Forum's annual meeting. Your presence here today underscores the importance of China's global engagement and the critical role China plays in shaping our shared future at such an important and critical moment. Your Excellency, China has emerged over the last decades as a key player in addressing global challenges, and its contributions to global economic growth and development are undeniable. China's commitment to sustainable development and its ambitious goals for a green economy are impressive. Your multiple initiatives have the potential to improve global trade and infrastructure, connect continents further, and foster economic growth, especially for the global south. Vice Premier Ding, you have been a pivotal figure in China's political landscape, known for your strategic vision and dedication to advancing China's modernization. With a career spanning several decades, you have played a crucial role in shaping policies that drive economic reform, technological innovations, and sustainable development. Your leadership in various capacities, including as Director of the CCP General Office, has been instrumental in fostering international cooperation and addressing global challenges. We are honored to have you with us and to share your insights on building a more, I should say, interconnected and resilient world. Please join me in welcoming His Excellency Vice Premier Ding to the stage.
Professor Klaus Schwab, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, friends. It gives me great pleasure to come to beautiful Davos for the World Economic Forum annual meeting. This is an important platform for discussing global economic issues and a vanguard for promoting international exchanges and cooperation. This small town is attractive not only for its picturesque landscape, but also for inspiring new ideas and facilitating common progress. 8 years ago, it was here in Davos that Chinese President Xi Jinping delivered the important speech in which he pondered the question of our times, what has gone wrong with the world, and what should we do about it, and sent a resounding message that China will support economic globalization, uphold and practice multilateralism, and join the effort to make the world a better place. This speech, as Professor Schwab concluded, brought us some sunshine. Upon deep reflection, President Xi pointed out that any attempt to channel the waters in the ocean back into isolated lakes and creeks is simply not possible, and that pursuing protectionism is like locking oneself in a dark room. While wind and rain may be kept outside, the dark room will also block light and air. At that time, I had the privilege of listening to that speech in the audience, and Professor Schwab, this is my second time here, not the first time. And it is still fresh in my memory. Since then, President Xi had offered clear answers twice at the World Economic Forum to the questions of how to improve global governance and how to build a community with a shared future for mankind, which provided important guidance to the international community. As we meet, transformation not seen in a century is accelerating across the board. With imminent tariff wars and trade wars, an ongoing tug-of-war between the forces for and against economic globalization, and intense rivalry between multilateralism and unilateralism, The global governance system is undergoing profound adjustments. Human society has once again come to a critical crossroads, hoping that the sun will break through clouds and mists to light up the way forward. It is time to recall President Xi's important speech, and we should firm up confidence, uphold solidarity and cooperation, and forge ahead, hand in hand, despite high winds and choppy waters, to build a community with a shared future for mankind. We should provide more stability and certainty for the world and build a just world of common development. Here, I wish to share a few observations. First, we need to jointly promote a universally beneficial and inclusive economic globalization. Economic globalization is an inherent requirement for the development of productive forces and an inevitable result of technological advancement. Indeed, it is an overwhelming trend of history. Over the years, despite some setbacks and headwinds, economic globalization has demonstrated strong resilience and dynamism. According to WTO statistics, the total volume of global trade has grown by an average of 5.8% per year since 1995, and reached $30.4 trillion in 2023. Between 1995 and 2022, the share of middle and low-income countries in global export rose from 16% to 32%. And developed countries did not lose out from this. Their growth rates and the well-being of their peoples have also been effectively boosted. Economic globalization is not a you lose, I win, zero-sum game, but a universally beneficial process where all can benefit and win together. Admittedly, economic globalization will bring some tensions and disagreements on distribution. These issues can only be resolved in the process of promoting economic globalization. Protectionism leads nowhere. Trade war has no winners. We should seize all opportunities to steer economic globalization in the right direction, tackle the common challenges with universal benefit, and pull strengths with inclusive cooperation, so as to usher in a new phase of economic globalization that is more dynamic, more inclusive, and more sustainable. I believe we have the wisdom and capability needed to find a win-win and all-win solution, one that is based on mutually beneficial cooperation and through communication and coordination. We should not only make the pie of economic globalization bigger, but also distribute it better. Second, we need to jointly uphold and practice true multilateralism. Multilateralism is the right way to maintain world peace and promote human progress. It is the golden key to solving the difficulties and challenges facing the world. International affairs should be decided by all through discussion, and the future of the world should be determined by all countries together. This is a consensus shared by the international community. We must hold high the banner of multilateralism, pursue the vision of global governance featuring extensive consultation and joint contribution for shared benefit, and ensure equal rights, equal opportunities, and equal rules for all countries in international affairs. This year marks the 80th anniversary of the founding of the UN. We should seize the opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to the purposes and principles of the UN Charter, firmly uphold the UN-centered international system and the international order based on international law, and make global governance more just and equitable. We should firmly uphold the multilateral trading system with WTO at its core, uphold its role as the main channel for rules-making on international trade, and foster an open, inclusive, and non-discriminatory environment for international economic cooperation. Third, we need to jointly foster new drivers and strengths for global economic development. The theme of this year's annual meeting, Collaboration for the Intelligent Age, is highly relevant. In today's world, the new round of technological revolution and industrial transformation is deepening. Cutting-edge technologies such as AI, quantum computing, quantum technology, and biomedicine are flourishing. and digital, green, and intelligent development is picking up pace. We should seize and make the most of these opportunities to enhance connectivity in the digital age, promote international cooperation on sci-tech innovation, help countries strengthen emerging and future industries, and accelerate the cultivation and development of new quality productive forces. In recent years, the North-South divide has become more pronounced, and the gaps in technology, digital access, and AI are still widening. We should uphold the principle of harnessing sci-tech achievements for the benefit of all humanity. We should help developing countries build AI, intelligent transportation, smart energy, and other new infrastructure, and promote the application of information technology in key livelihood sectors so that more countries can get on board the fast train of digital economic development. Fourth, we need to jointly tackle major global challenges. Currently, the world is going through transformation and turbulence, and challenges such as climate change, food security, and energy security keep cropping up. Only by strengthening global solidarity and pooling global efforts can we overcome the challenges and build a better future together. President Xi proposed the Global Development Initiative, the Global Security Initiative, and Global Civilization Initiative, offering important public goods to the world. We should work together to advance these three global initiatives to generate enduring impetus for development, pass on the torch of peace to future generations, and illuminate the splendor of civilizations, thereby gathering formidable strength to overcome difficulties and challenges. Green transition is a prevailing trend of global development and the fundamental solution to climate change. The international community should work together to accelerate the energy transition in an equitable, orderly, and just manner, keep the new energy industry chain stable, and promote green products and technologies. We must follow a consistent approach in addressing climate change and improve the consistency of environmental and climate policies and economic and trade policies, so as to prevent economic and trade frictions from impeding the process of green transition and avoid erecting green barriers that could disrupt normal economic and trade cooperation. Security and development complement and reinforce each other. At present, some international hotspot issues and conflicts are dragging on and having a serious impact on global peace and stability. We should promote security and peace through cooperation and resolve disputes and differences through dialogue. It is essential that we follow a new path to security that chooses dialogue and partnership over confrontation and alliance. We should support the UN and its Security Council in playing a bigger role and support all efforts conducive to the peaceful settlement of crises.
Ladies and gentlemen, friends, China is a key engine for global economic development. Whenever world economic issues are discussed at Davos, a lot of attention would be on China. Here, taking this opportunity, I'd like to share with you some of the major trends that characterize the Chinese economy. The first major trend is that high-quality development is making solid progress. This is a big highlight of the Chinese economy. Over the past year, the Chinese economy made steady progress while maintaining overall stability. China's GDP grew by 5%, one of the fastest among major economies. In response to the headwinds and the challenges confronting China's economy, we stepped up countercyclical measures and, in particular, intensified efforts to introduce a package of incremental policies that effectively boosted the real estate and stock markets, improved market expectations, and restored public confidence. As a result, the economy has rebounded and turned for the better. The headwinds encountered by the economy of China are due to both the external environment and temporary pains brought by our own economic restructuring. We have persistently promoted high-quality development. New business sectors, forms, and models have kept emerging. This has played an important role in overcoming economic difficulties. During my inspection tours to different parts of China last year, I saw the evident progress in the transition from traditional growth drivers to new ones. I saw emerging and future industries booming and new quality productive forces taking shape at a faster pace. All the business I visited, from private companies to foreign invested ones, and from traditional manufacturing to digital firms, have great confidence in future development. This year, China will further intensify macro policies and adopt a more proactive fiscal policy and an appropriately accommodative monetary policy. Will vigorously boost consumption, improve investment performance, facilitate the integrated development of sci-tech innovation and industrial innovation, promote the sound and stable development of the capital market, stabilize the real estate market, and effectively prevent and diffuse local government debt risks so as to effectively pursue higher quality economic growth and appropriately increase economic output. China's stable and sound economic development will inject strong and sustained impetus to global economic development. The second major trend is that green and low-carbon transition is accelerating across the board. This is a salient feature of the Chinese economy. China is taking concrete actions to peak carbon dioxide emissions before 2030 and achieve carbon neutrality before 2060. Since 2012, China's energy consumption per unit of GDP and carbon emission intensity have dropped by more than 26% and 35% respectively. And China's renewable energy now accounts for over 35% of its total power generation. China has built the world's largest and most complete new energy industrial chain. 70% of the photovoltaic components and 60% of wind power equipment worldwide come from China. This high-quality production capacity had served as a strong boost to global green development and climate response. China's circular economy enjoys a robust momentum of development. For example, empowered by new material technology, a Chinese enterprise produces one T-shirt with polyester yarn extracted from 8 plastic bottles and makes one hard shell jacket with 28 plastic bottles. This way, it consumes more than 30 billion plastic bottles every year, which has both ecological and economic benefits. China's pursuit of green transition is a long-term commitment rather than an act of expediency. No matter how the international landscape may evolve, China's determination and action for proactive climate response will not change. We will make tireless efforts to reduce carbon emissions and mitigate pollution while expanding green transition and promoting economic growth. Accelerate the comprehensive transition to green economic and social development. Observe the goals and principles of the UNFCCC and its Paris Agreement, and make greater contributions to global climate response. The third major trend is that reform and opening up is moving up toward a higher level. This is the source of vitality of the Chinese economy. It is through reform and opening up that China caught up with the times in big strides over the past decades. And in order to break new ground in China's modernization drive, we still count on reform and opening up. In July last year, the Communist Party of China, the CPC, held the third plenary session of its 20th Central Committee, laying out systematic plans for further deepening reform comprehensively to advance Chinese modernization. More than 300 important reform measures were introduced at the meeting, and these reform tasks shall be completed by 2029, the year marking the 80th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. We'll build a high-standard socialist market economy, foster a fairer and more dynamic market environment, and make resource allocation as efficient and productive as possible. Openness is the hallmark of Chinese modernization. In terms of the access for foreign investment, we set up the China-Shanghai Pilot Free Trade Zone in 2013 and issued the first negative list for foreign investment. There were 190 items on the list at that time, but now the number has been reduced to 27. Last year, China lifted all restrictions on foreign investment in manufacturing and established a negative list system for cross-border trading services, and we have been taking systematic steps to further open important sectors like telecom, the internet, education, culture, and medical services. In terms of foreign trade, we don't seek trade surplus. We want to import more competitive quality products and services to promote balanced trade. China's overall tariff level has been cut to 7.3%, a fairly low level in the world. And we give all least developed countries having diplomatic relations with China zero tariff treatment for 100% tariff lines. We have taken the initiative to expand imports and held the China International Import Expo for 7 years in a row. China has been the world's second largest importer for many years now. In terms of business environment, we know issues like China's IPR protection, equal participation in government procurement, cross-border data flow, access to factors of production, qualification approval, and standard setting are of great interest to multinationals. In these areas, we are continuously improving relevant institutions and policies. These issues are important to both domestic and foreign invested enterprises, and our attitude has been clear, that is, to provide equal and fair treatment for all of them. Take government procurement, for example. According to relevant laws and regulations, all products made in China, whether their suppliers are domestic or foreign invested enterprises, enjoy the right of equal participation in government procurement. I know in reality, there might be cases where invisible barriers and hidden hurdles stand in the way of both foreign invested enterprises and domestic ones. On the part of the Chinese government, we sincerely hope to work out these problems with all of you. China's door of opening up will not be closed and will open even wider, and our business environment will only get better. We sincerely welcome more foreign enterprises to invest and do business in China and achieve greater success in sharing China's opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, China's Spring Festival is just around the corner. As the new year begins, everything takes on a new look. Let's start again from Davos. Uphold the right path of multilateralism, promote open and inclusive development, and jointly usher in a better future. To conclude, I wish the annual meeting a full success. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Premier Ding, for having given us a very deep and comprehensive insight into Chinese policies and the status of the China economy. Let me follow up with one or two questions. First, we are now in a kind of reshaping of the global order. And my question would be, how does China actually view its role in shaping the global order among the rising tensions which we have? And what would be actually the consequences, Vice Premier, of a world falling apart into two different systems, short-term and long-term? And what should be done to avoid such a scenario?
施瓦布主席所提的这个问题，
Professor Schwab,
反映了国际社会
your question reflects
中国的关切、作用的关切，
the international community's
国际社会
interest in China's role and also a concern shared by the international community about the international landscape.
两个体系
The worry that the world may split into two separate systems.
中国的在国际秩序中的角色作用。
On China's role in the international order,
想起中国一句话，
as a Chinese saying goes,
其言
what a person says and does tell you what that person is.
可以听一听中国的领导人、中国的人
Just look at what Chinese leaders and Chinese people have said
中国人
and look at what the Chinese people have done.
听一听、看一看以后，作为一个
After that,
一定会得
I
出
think
结论。
any upright person would come to the conclusion that China is a responsible major country
国际秩序的坚定的维护者，
and a firm defender and builder of the international order.
大家可以想一想，
First,
近几年习主席
in recent years,
国际秩序问题
President Xi Jinping
表了一系列的观点，
has shared his views multiple times on the international order.
比如说
One of that is the vision of building a community with a shared future for mankind. And also he put forth the Global Development Initiative, the Global Security Initiative, and the Global Civilization Initiative.
弥合分歧，
These ideas and initiatives have contributed to narrowing down division,
其次大家也
reducing the risk of confrontation.
中国始终是和平发展的
At the same time,
践行者。
China has always been
中国在处理国际事务
a staunch exerciser of peaceful development. In international affairs,
而不对
we always champion dialogue
结伴，
and partnership rather than confrontation and alliance.
和平安全方面，
It is fair to say that with respect to peace and security,
我可以说，中国是记录最好的。
China has the best track record among the world's major countries.
第三，
Third,
我始终是坚定的，
China
是真正的多边主义
has been a staunch supporter of true multilateralism. We firmly uphold the international system with the UN at its core
以国际法为基础。
and the international order based on international law.
中国人言必行，行
The Chinese people always honor our commitments. Our deeds always match our words.
司法部主席
That's for the first question.
如果
And you touch upon
国际
the possible consequences if the world splits into different systems
我说
and how to do about
想
it.
象，真是不敢想象。
I think if that is the case, the consequences would be unimaginable. If the world becomes divided,
从此就很难再合作应对我们
it would be very difficult for humanity to address common challenges together.
对抗
And in a even worse case, we may
这种情况，
also relapse into
国家都不
confrontation.
世外的。
That would be a situation where no country can stay unaffected.
我又想到，刚才我也说过，习主席讲了，地球上的
President Xi
每一个国家
once said that all countries in the world are like passengers in the same big ship. We share the same future
同求共渡，
and need to act with stronger global solidarity
弥合纷争
to narrow down
的
division
恐怖的结果、可怕的结
and
果，
avoid unimaginable consequences.
团结一致去构建人类命运。
We should work together to bring to life the vision of building a community with a shared future for mankind, firmly oppose zero-sum and Cold War mentalities, make the international order more just and equitable. At the same time, in this process, I think the role of major countries is very important. The major countries must lead by example and act in a way befitting their stature. It is an aspiration shared by the 1.4 billion Chinese people that the world can be tranquil and peaceful and achieve common development. We are working tirelessly toward this end and hope the rest of the world will join us. That concludes my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Premier Ding. In the context of the question I just asked also, we know that the intelligent age is characterized by fierce competition in the new technologies such as artificial intelligence and quantum computing. Now, those technologies significantly transform industries and societies, but they also enhance national power. Now, what will China do to avoid that those technologies become a divisive factor and contribute really to the progress positively of all humanity?
谢谢，也是一个非常好的问题啊。
Thank you, Professor Schwab. That's a very good question. I fully agree with your opinion. Artificial intelligence and quantum technology and other new and emerging technologies are perhaps not progressive development, but disruptive transformation. On China's science and technology, over the years, China has registered economic growth and sci-tech progress and has made achievements that has attracted the attentions of the whole world. But we know very clearly that our achievements are attributed to open cooperation. So open cooperation on science and technology, and we are fully aware of its significance. So over the years, we've been committed to such principles as science knows no border and should benefit all humanity. And we have been promoting international cooperation on science and technology in terms of innovation and the sharing of technological results. Up until now, China has established cooperative relations with more than 160 countries and regions on science and technology. Especially, we strengthened cooperation with Global South countries, and we also shared the application of new technologies. We did this to narrow the technology gap and prevent that sci-tech innovation from becoming a game only for the rich countries and rich people. And we have made encouraging progress in this regard. On artificial intelligence, Professor Schwab, I agree with what you said on AI. Artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies, if used well, will undoubtedly provide strong impetus to development. But otherwise, if used unwell, it will be a primary source of risks. China is developing artificial intelligence. When we do this, we attach great importance to strike the right balance between development and security. That means to get the relationship between security and development right. We seek progress while maintaining stability. to ensure that we will not go astray. Let me draw an analogy. Just like when you drive a car on the highway, you must first make sure that the brake is functional before stepping on the gas pedal. So, striking the right balance between development and security is of utmost importance. And China is developing AI to promote the intelligent transformation of our economy, to deliver a better life for the 1.4 billion Chinese people, to make them live a modern life. This is our objective, so we will not blindly follow others' practices. We will not engage in excessive competition in this regard. So, the Chinese government is capable of ensuring the sound management of artificial intelligence because we have a very strong institutional system and a monitoring system. And we have a very strong ethics committee. So with all this, we can manage and utilize artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies to the benefit of our people. On the global governance on AI, this is a tough issue. If we allow this reckless competition among countries continue, then we will see a great rhino. What to do about it? I think we need to review the history. For example, our lessons in managing the risks, the nuclear risks, and biological risks and security. And we have accumulated experience. And in this regard, the United Nations and its relevant agencies have played a fantastic role. And we need to learn from this valuable experience. And we stand ready to, under the framework of the United Nations at its core, to actively participate in all the, including all the relevant international organizations and all countries, to discuss the formulation of robust rules to ensure that the AI technology will become a treasure cave found by Alibaba instead of a Pandora's box. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our session, and please join me again thanking Vice Premier Deng for his insights into China's policies.
Turnout for one of the highlights during our annual meeting. We will be joined by President Javier Milei. It's the second time at our annual meeting here in Davos. And President Milei just arrived from the inauguration in Washington. Also, Madame, his sister, sitting here on the first row. They had a great experience in Washington, D.C. President just told Professor Schwab and myself. And as I mentioned, also, we are very excited about his second participation here in Davos. And for some of us, my dear colleague Marisol Argueta, our Latin American director, and myself, we were privileged to also be in Buenos Aires a few months ago, where we brought 50 business leaders from all over the world under the auspices of the World Economic Forum. And we spent a day with President Milei in Argentina. His hospitality is unique, and it also shows the business interest for Argentina. Argentina has been through a remarkable transformation. Deficit wiped out, inflation down, and growth rebounding with strong prospects ahead. And that's in a year. I think the president really should get an applause for that. So, I don't want to take any more time, Mr. President. I would like to then invite Mr. President Milei.
Good morning, everyone. And how much has changed in such a short time? A year ago, I stood here before you, alone, and spoke some truths about the state of the Western world that were met with some surprise and astonishment by much of the political, economic, and media establishment of the West. And I must admit that in a way I understand it. A president from a country that, as a result of systematic economic failure for more than 100 years, as a result of having the country taken weak stances in major global conflicts, and as a result of us having closed ourselves off to trade, we had lost practically all international significance over the years. A president of such a country stood on this stage and told the entire world that they were wrong, that they were headed for failure, that the West had gone astray, and that it needed to be redirected. The president of that country, Argentina, who was not a politician, who had no legislative support, no backing from governors, business leaders, or media groups. In that speech, here, standing before you, I told you it was the beginning of a new Argentina, that Argentina had been infected with socialism for far too long, and that with us it would once again embrace the ideas of freedom, a model that we summarize as the defense of life, liberty, and private property. And I also told you that, in a way, Argentina was the ghost of Western Christmases yet to come, because we had already experienced everything you were going through, and we already knew how it would end. A year later, I must say that I no longer feel so alone. I don't feel alone because the world has embraced Argentina. Argentina has become a global example of fiscal responsibility, of commitment to honoring our obligations, and obviously a commitment to solve the inflation problem. Also, we are an example of a new way of doing politics, which is about telling people the truth to their faces and trusting that they will understand. Nor do I feel alone, because over the course of this year, I have found allies in this fight for the ideas of freedom in every corner of the world. From the amazing Elon Musk to that fierce Italian lady, my dear Giorgia Meloni. From Bukele in El Salvador to Viktor Orban in Hungary. From Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel to Donald Trump in the United States. Slowly, an international alliance has been forming among all those nations which, like ours, want to be free and believe in the ideas of liberty. And slowly, what once seemed like the absolute global hegemony of the woke left in politics, educational institutions, in the media, in supranational organizations, or even in forums like Davos, has begun to crumble. And a hope for the ideas of freedom is starting to emerge. Today I've come here to tell you that our battle is not yet won. And although hope has been rekindled, it is our moral duty and our historical responsibility to dismantle the ideological edifice of sickly wokeism. Until we have succeeded in rebuilding our historical cathedral, until we have ensured that the majority of Western countries once again embrace the ideas of liberty, until our ideas become the common currency in the halls of events such as this one, we can't let our guard down. Because I must say that forums like this one have been protagonists and promoters of the sinister agenda of wokeism that is doing so much damage to the Western world. If we want to change, if we truly want to defend the rights of citizens, we must first begin by telling them the truth. And the truth is that there is something badly mistaken about the ideas that have been promoted through forums such as this one. And I would like to take a few minutes today to discuss some of them. Today, few will deny that winds of change are blowing in the West. There are those who resist change, those who grudgingly accept it, but accept it nonetheless. There are the new converts who appear when they see it as inevitable. And finally, there's those of us who have fought all of our entire lives for change to arrive. Each one of you will know which group you belong to. Surely, there may be a bit of each within this auditorium, but you will all surely recognize that the times of change are knocking on our doors. Historic moments of change have a unique characteristic. The times when formulas that have been in place for decades become exhausted. The methods once considered the only way of doing things cease to make sense, and what to many seemed unquestionable truths is finally called into question. These are times when the rules get rewritten, and therefore these are times that reward those who have the courage to take risks. But much of the free world still prefers the comfort of what is familiar, even though it may be the wrong path, and they will insist on applying the recipes of failure. And the great burden that is the common denominator among the countries and institutions that are failing is the mental virus of woke ideology. This is the great epidemic of our time that must be cured. This is the cancer we need to get rid of. This ideology has colonized the world's most important institutions, from the political parties and governments of leading Western nations to global governance organizations, even NGOs, universities and media outlets. It has also set the tone of the global conversation over the past decades. Until we remove this abhorrent ideology from our culture, our institutions and our laws, Western civilization and even the human species will not be able to return to the path of progress demanded by our pioneering spirit. It is essential to break these ideological chains if we want to usher in a new golden age. That is why today I would like to take a few minutes to breaking those chains. But first, let's talk about what we're fighting for. The West represents the pinnacle of human achievement. On the fertile ground of its Greco-Roman heritage and Judeo-Christian values, the seeds of something unprecedented in history were sown. After definitively overcoming absolutism, liberalism inaugurated a new era in human existence, and within the new moral and philosophical framework which placed individual liberty above the whims of tyrants, the West was able to unleash man's creative capacity, initiating an unprecedented process of wealth generation. The data speaks for itself. Until the year 1800, the world's per capita GDP remained virtually constant. However, from the 19th century onwards, and thanks to the Industrial Revolution, per capita GDP multiplied by 20, lifting 90% of the global population out of poverty, even though the population itself increased eightfold. And this was only possible thanks to a convergence of fundamental values: respect for life, liberty, and property, which enabled free trade, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and the other pillars of Western civilization. In addition, our inventive, Faustian, exploratory, pioneering spirit, which is constantly testing the limits of what is possible. And that's a pioneering spirit that today is represented, among others, by my dear friend Elon Musk, who has been unjustly vilified by the wokeism ideology in recent days for an innocent gesture that simply reflects his enthusiasm and gratitude towards people. In summary, we invented capitalism on the basis of saving, investment, labor and reinvestment, and hard work. We got every worker to multiply tenfold, 100-fold, or why not even 1,000-fold their productivity, thus overcoming the Malthusian trap. Yet at some point in the 20th century, we lost our way, and the liberal principles that had made us free and prosperous were betrayed. A new political class, driven by collectivist ideologies and taking advantage of times of crisis, saw the perfect opportunity to accumulate power. All the wealth created by capitalism until then and into the future would be redistributed through some scheme of centralized planning, setting in motion a process whose disastrous consequences we are suffering today. By promoting a socialist agenda, while insidiously operating within the liberal paradigm, this new political class distorted the values of liberalism. And so they replaced freedom with liberation, using the coercive power of the state to redistribute the wealth created by capitalism. Their justification was the sinister, unjust, and abhorrent idea of social justice, complemented by theoretical Marxist frameworks aimed at liberating individuals from their needs. And at the core of this new value system lies the fundamental premise that equality before the law is not enough, as hidden systemic injustices exist which must be rectified. An idea that serves as a goldmine for bureaucrats who aspire to omnipotence. And this is fundamentally what wokeism is about, the result of the reversal of Western values. Each of our civilization's pillars has been replaced by a distorted version of itself through various mechanisms of cultural subversion. Negative rights to life, liberty, and property were transformed into an artificial and endless list of positive rights. First it was education, then housing, and from then on absurdities like access to the internet, televised football, theater, cosmetic treatments, and an endless number of other desires that were turned into fundamental human rights. Rights that, of course, someone has to pay for, and which can only be guaranteed through the infinite expansion of the abhorrent state. In other words, we move from the concept of freedom as the fundamental protection of the individual against the intervention of the tyrant to the concept of liberation through state intervention. On this foundation, wokeism was built, an ideology of monolithic thinking upheld by various institutions, whose purpose is to penalize dissent. Feminism, diversity, inclusion, equity, immigration, abortion, environmentalism, gender ideology, among others. These are all various heads of the same beast, aimed at justifying the state's expansion through the appropriation and distortion of noble causes. Let us look at some of these. Radical feminism is a distortion of the concept of equality. Even in its most benevolent form, it is redundant, as equality before the law already exists in the West. Everything else is a quest for privileges, which is what radical feminism truly seeks, pitting half of the population against the other half, when they should both be on the same side. We have even got to the point of normalizing the fact that in many supposedly civilized countries, if you kill a woman, it is called femicide, and this carries more serious punishment than if you kill a man, simply based on the sex of the victim, legally making a woman's life be worth more than that of a man. And that they carry the banner of the gender-based wage gap, but when you look at the data, it is clear that there is no inequality for the same work, but rather that most men tend to choose better-paying professions than most women. However, they don't complain about the fact that most prison inmates are men, or that most plumbers are men, or that most victims of robbery or murder are men, let alone the majority of people who have died in wars. But if you raise these points in the media, or even at this forum, you're considered a misogynist, simply for defending an elementary principle of modern democracy and the rule of law, which is equality before the law, and of course defending the data as well. Wokeism also manifests in sinister radical environmentalism and the climate change agenda. Preserving our planet for future generations is a matter of common sense. No one wants to live in a landfill. But once again, wokeism has managed to pervert this fundamental idea. From preserving the environment for human enjoyment, we have shifted to a fanatical environmentalism, where we humans are seen as a cancer that must be eradicated, and economic development is considered little more than a crime against nature. And yet, when we argue that the Earth has already gone through 5 abrupt temperature change cycles and that during 4 of those man was not even around, we are called flat earthers in order to discredit our ideas, even though science and the data are on our side. It is no coincidence that these same groups are the main promoters of the bloody, murderous abortion agenda, an agenda designed on the basis of the Malthusian Malthusian premise that overpopulation will destroy the earth, and that we must therefore implement some form of population control. In fact, this has been carried to such an extreme that today on Earth, we start to see a population growth rate starting to look like a problem and talk about a job they've done by promoting abortion. And these forums promote the LGBT agenda, attempting to impose the idea that women are men and men are women simply based on self-perception. And they say nothing about when a man dresses as a woman and kills his opponent in a boxing ring, or when a male prison inmate claims to be a woman and ends up sexually assaulting women in prison. In fact, just a few weeks ago, there were headlines around the world regarding the case of two gay Americans who championed the banners of sexual diversity and were sentenced to 100 years in prison for abusing and filming their adopted children for more than 2 years. I want to be clear. When I say abuse, this is no euphemism, because in its most extreme forms, gender ideology is outright child abuse. They are pedophiles. So I want to know who would support that kind of behavior. Healthy children are being irreversibly harmed through hormone treatments and mutilation, as if a 5-year-old child could possibly consent to such things. And should their family not agree to this, there will always be state agents ready to step in favor of what they call the best interest of the child. And believe me, the scandalous experiments in the name of this criminal ideology will be condemned and likened to those committed in the darkest periods in our history. Uncovering this multitude of abhorrent practices is the eternal victimhood narrative, always ready to hurl accusations of homophobia, transphobia, and other fabricated terms, whose sole purpose is to silence those of us who dared to expose this scandal, one of which both national and international authorities are complicit. Meanwhile, in our businesses, public institutions, and educational establishments, merit has been cast aside in favor of the doctrine of diversity, which represents a regression to the aristocratic systems of the past. Quotas are invented for every minority politicians can come up with, which ends up undermining the excellence of institutions. Wokeism has also distorted the issue of immigration. The free movement of goods and people is a fundamental pillar of liberalism. We know this well. Argentina, the United States, and many other countries became great thanks to immigrants who left their homelands in search of new opportunities. However, we have shifted from attracting foreign talent to foster development to now embracing mass immigration driven not by national interest but by guilt. Since the West is supposedly the root cause of all of the world's evils in history, it must redeem itself by opening its borders to everyone, which leads to a form of reverse colonization that resembles collective suicide. So this is how we now see images of hordes of immigrants who abuse, assault, or even kill European citizens whose only sin was not adhering to a particular religion. But when someone questions these situations, they're immediately labeled racist, xenophobic, or even Nazis. Wokeism has penetrated our societies so deeply, promoted by institutions like this one, that it has even led to questioning the very concept of biological sex through the disastrous influence of gender ideology, which has resulted in even greater state intervention through absurd legislation, such as the state having to fund expensive hormone treatments and surgeries to fulfill the self-perception of certain individuals. Only now are we beginning to see the effects of an entire generation that has mutilated their bodies, encouraged by a culture of sexual relativism. And these people will have to spend their entire lives in psychiatric treatment to cope with what they have done to themselves. Yet, no one dares to speak about these issues. Not only that, but the vast majority have also been subjected to the misguided self-perceptions of a tiny minority. And wokeism also seeks to hijack our future, because by dominating the faculties of the world's most prestigious universities, it is shaping the elites of our countries to reject and deny the culture, ideas, and values that made us great, further damaging our social fabric. What future do we have if we are teaching our young people to feel ashamed of our past? All of this was incubated and increasingly developed over the past decades after the fall of the Berlin Wall. Curious enough, free nations began to self-destruct when they no longer had adversaries to defeat. Peace made us weak. We were defeated by our own complacency. All these and other aberrations, which we can't enumerate due to time constraints, are the threats that today endanger the West. And unfortunately, these are the beliefs that institutions like this one have been promoting for 40 years. And no one here can feign innocence. For decades, there has been a worship of a sinister and murderous ideology as if it were a golden calf, moving heaven and earth to impose it on humanity. And this organization, along with the most influential supranational bodies, have been the ideologues of this barbarity. Multilateral lending organizations have been instruments of extortion, while many national governments, and especially the European Union, have acted as their armed wing. Is it not true that right now, as we speak, in the UK, citizens are being imprisoned for exposing horrifying crimes committed by Muslim migrants, crimes that the government seeks to conceal? Or didn't the bureaucrats in Brussels suspend Romania's elections simply because they didn't like the party that had won? Faced with each of these discussions, wokeism's first strategy is to discredit those of us who challenge these things, first by labeling us and then by silencing us. If you're white, you must be racist. If you're a man, you must be a misogynist or part of the patriarchy. If you're rich, you must be a cruel capitalist. If you're heterosexual, you must be heteronormative, homophobic, or transphobic. For every challenge, they have a label, and then they try to suppress you by force or through legal means. Because beneath the rhetoric of diversity, democracy, and tolerance that they so often preach, what truly lies is their blatant desire to eliminate dissent, criticism, and ultimately freedom, so they can continue to uphold a model in which they are the main beneficiaries. Haven't we heard only recently how certain European leading authorities, and quite reddish, I should say, actually have made open appeals to censorship? Actually, there is no censorship, but rather this idea that you need to silence those who don't partake in the woke ideology. And what kind of society can wokeism create? A society that replaced the free exchange of goods and services with the arbitrary distribution of wealth at gunpoint. One that replaced free communities with forced collectivization. One that replaced the creative chaos of the market with the sterile and sclerotic order of socialism. A society filled with resentment, where there are only two types of people. Those who are net taxpayers on the one hand, and those who are beneficiaries of the state on the other. And by this, I don't refer to those who receive social assistance because they don't have enough to eat. I'm talking about the privileged corporations, the bankers who were bailed out during the subprime crisis, the majority of media outlets, the indoctrination centers disguised as universities, the state bureaucracy, the unions, social organizations, and the crony businesses that thrive of the taxes paid by hard-working individuals and taxpayers. I'm talking about the world described by Ayn Rand in Atlas Shrugged, which unfortunately has become a reality. It is a system where the big winner is the political class, which becomes both a referee and stakeholder in this redistribution game. I say it again. The political class is a referee and stakeholder, an interested party in this redistribution. Of course, the one who redistributes is the one who keeps the lion's share. And despite the cosmetic differences between various political parties, they share interests, partners, deals, and an unshakable commitment to maintaining the status quo. That is why I call them all the party of the state, a system that hides behind well-meaning rhetoric, claiming that the market fails and that they are the ones responsible for correcting the failures through regulations, force, and bureaucracy. But there's no such thing as market failures. Market failures, I say this again, do not exist. Since the market is a mechanism of social cooperation where property rights are voluntarily exchanged, the very concept of market failures is a contradiction in terms. The only thing such intervention achieves is the creation of new distortions within the price system, which in turn hinders economic calculation, savings, and investment, ultimately leading to even more poverty in its wake, or a mesh of abhorrent regulations, such as is the case in Europe, which kills economic growth. As I often say in my speeches, if you believe there is a market failure, go and check to see if the state is not involved. And if you find that it isn't, check again, because you got it wrong. For this same reason, since wokeism is nothing more than a systematic plan by the party of the state to justify state intervention and increase public spending, this means that our first and foremost mission, if we truly want to reclaim the West's progress and build a new golden era, has to be the drastic reduction in the size of the state, not only in each of our countries, but also the drastic reduction of all supranational organizations, as this is the only way to root out this perverse system, draining its resources in order to give back to taxpayers what belongs to them and to put an end to the sale of favors. There is no better method to end state bureaucracy than to have no opportunity for such favors to be sold in the first place. The functions of the state must once again be limited to defending the right to life, liberty, and property. Any other function the state assumes will come at the expense of its fundamental role and will inevitably lead to the omnipresent Leviathan that we all suffer under today. Today we are witnessing the global exhaustion of this system that has dominated us for the past few decades. Just as has happened in Argentina, the rest of the world is seeing the deepening of the only truly relevant conflict of this century and of all previous ones, the conflict between free citizens and the political caste that clings to the established order, doubling down on its efforts aimed at censorship, persecution, and destruction. Fortunately, throughout the free world, a silent majority is organizing, and in every corner of our hemisphere, the echo of this freedom cry resonates. We are facing a change of era, a Copernican shift, the destruction of a paradigm and the construction of another. And if globally influential institutions like this one wish to turn over a new leaf and participate in good faith in this new paradigm, it will have to take responsibility for the role played over the past decades, acknowledging to society the mea culpa that is being demanded of them. To conclude, I wish to speak directly to the world's leaders, to all those who lead both national states and also to major economic groups and influential international organizations, whether present here today or listening from their homes. The political formulas of the past decades, which I have referred to in this speech, have failed and are now collapsing under their own weight. This means that thinking like everyone else does, reading what everyone else reads and saying what everyone else says can only lead to error, even though many still insist on marching towards the precipice. The script of the last 40 years has run out, and when a system runs out, history opens up. That is why, to all global leaders, I say it is time to break free from that script. It is time to be bold. It is time to dare to think and to dare to write our own verses. Because when the ideas and narratives of the present all say the same thing and they say the wrong things, being brave means standing outside of time. It means looking backwards, not being dazzled by the transient, losing sight of the universal. It means reclaiming truths that were obvious to our ancestors and that are at the core of Western civilization success, but which the regime of monolithic thinking of recent decades has persecuted as if they were heresies. As Churchill once said, the farther back you can look, the farther forward you're likely to see. In other words, we must reconnect with the forgotten truths of our past to untangle the knots of the present and take the next step forward as a civilization towards the future. And what do I see when I look back? That we must once again embrace the last proven thesis of economic and social success. This is the model of freedom. Once again embracing the ideas of freedom, going back to libertarianism. That's what we're doing in Argentina. That is what I trust President Trump will do in the new America. And this is what we invite all the great nations of the free world to do if they wish to halt in time what is clearly a path leading to catastrophe. So, Ultimately, what I'm proposing is that we make the West great again. Today, just as 215 years ago, Argentina has broken its chains and invites us, as our national anthem declares, invites us, all mortals of the world, to hear the sacred cry, freedom, freedom, freedom. May the forces of heaven be with us. Thank you all very much, and long live freedom, damn it!
Thank you so much, Mr. President. As you all know, as everybody knows, this is an open, free platform, and we are extremely grateful for your concept.